Why do most biostimulant products struggle to earn any spot, let alone a permanent spot, in a farmer's crop plan, even when the science behind them is sound and the trial data is strong? In most cases, it's because of the positioning. And there's one specific positioning mistake I see again and again across the industry. I call it the sauce paradox. If you sell, market, or build biostimulant products, this one idea should change how your whole portfolio is positioned in the market. My name is Shane Thomas of Upstream Ag Insights, and today we're going to break down the sauce paradox. So first, let's picture two bottles of sauce in your fridge. The first is Frank's RedHot. Their brand is built on one famous line, which is, I put that shit on everything. Eggs, wings, pizza, tacos, whatever it might be, everything. The promise is total versatility. Use it whenever, wherever, on whatever. The second bottle is barbecue sauce. Barbecue sauce has a specific job. It's built for cooking and marinating meat. It is formulated specifically for that use, and they're made to deliver a specific experience under high heat. Some are matched to specific proteins, even you have chicken or beef or whatever it might be, and nobody's confused about what barbecue sauce is for, and nobody thinks less of it for being so focused. The focus is exactly why you use it. And here's the paradox surrounding it. Almost every biostimulant company in the market wants to be Frank's RedHot, and almost every one of them would be far better off being barbecue sauce. So let me explain why this happens. And to be clear, the pull toward Frank's RedHot is completely understandable. When you augment plant physiology, you genuinely can influence a lot of things in a plant, whether it's overall plant health, stress tolerance, nutrient use efficiency, root development, so many different things. And so when you're building the messaging, there's an enormous temptation to say the product does everything on every crop in every situation. There's also a business reason. Or your claim, the more optionality you keep, so more crops you can sell into, more timings you can apply at, more acres in your total addressable market, at least on paper. So saying improves plant health feels safe because it never excludes any opportunity. So the instinct around it makes complete sense. The problem is what it does to the buyer, whether that's the actual farmer themselves or the trusted advisor or agronomist recommending the product to the farmer. So when you try to be everything to everyone, you become nothing to everybody. If you think about how a farmer or an agronomist actually makes a decision, they're not sitting around looking for more products to add to their crop plan or to the field. They're managing risk against specific, tangible threats. A specific weed, a disease they've seen take 10 or a dozen or whatever a number of bushels off of a field, or an insect with a known threshold. Crop protection works because it attaches to a specific known threat which drives urgency and action. There is awareness of a specific problem, and the product is the answer to that problem, whether it's an insecticide for insects or a fungicide for disease. Now, if we think about how most biostimulants get positioned, improves plant health or manages abiotic stress or supports nutrient use efficiency, none of those phrases drives urgency. None of them are tangible. None of them own a specific corner of the farmer's mind. They're all true, and yet they're forgettable and they lack the ability to drive urgency and action in the farmer or the agronomist. No crop protection company would ever launch a herbicide and position it as just a broadleaf herbicide. They take what they know about the active ingredient and they get specific. A specific crop at a specific staging for a specific weed that's also at a specific staging or size, which specific residual parameters in a specific geography at a specific rate with a specific tank mix partner and water volume. You could go on. And typically it's positioned around 1 to 3 specific problem weeds in a region, even though it kills dozens and dozens of them or has an impact on dozens and dozens of them, because that one specific weed target drives the urgency for the farmer to select that specific product in that specific instance, because there's always a major weed driver in every field. That's the same with biostimulants. And so why do we accept biostimulant companies telling the market that they manage stress and then simply leave it there? To understand the cost of the Frank's RedHot sauce approach, it helps to see where biostimulants sit in a farmer and agronomist's mind. And I use a framework I call the Hierarchy of Agronomic Needs. At the base are the foundational needs. So for example, seed is a very obvious one. You need to have seed. Every row crop farmer literally cannot farm without seed, and seed drives almost every other decision within the operation, whether it's on the PGR front, whether it's on the fertilizer front, et cetera, et cetera. And above that foundational need is a functional need. So these are the inputs viewed as defaults each year, even though they're not strictly required. So you can think about nitrogen, or you can think about a herbicide, for example. Above that are optimization options, which can include fungicides, for example. And then above that are elevated outcomes, the things that farmers reach for when the economics look good, and the first things they cut when things do not look good. Vague, do everything messaging is a problem, and it keeps biostimulants stuck at the top of that hierarchy at the elevated outcomes. They're in this optimization area and the nice to have tier. And that tier, again, is what gets cut first. And so the entire goal of better positioning is to move biostimulants down that hierarchy toward functional, toward the default. And you cannot do that with a claim as broad as plant health. You do it by attaching the product to a problem the farmer already takes seriously, or you can make them take seriously because they know it robs them of a specific number of bushels or quality, whatever it is, on an annual basis. So what do biostimulant companies do instead? In my view, they should run through what I call the funnel of specificity. And you kind of start wide with this and then narrow it down, meaning if you look at it as manages abiotic stress, we zero in on a specific type of stress, meaning in this instance, we'll use heat stress, for example. Then we pick heat stress in a specific crop, like corn. Then heat stress during the most prone stage of corn. So that might be at tassel, or it might be at silking, whatever it might be. Then target it in specific geographies, and even at specific temperatures or humidities or conditions that you know it's going to cause the bigger issue in, where the farmer can actually see the conditions line up. Now you have something that the farmer can hold on to or have in the back of their mind. You can put numbers to it, like how often does the problem show up? You can quantify it. How intense is it when it does show up? What does that look like? How many bushels does it typically cost? What does that problem actually look like in terms of what it makes the plant look like, or the parts of the plant look like? And now you can take something that's invisible and an abstract benefit and turn it into something that's visible, quantifiable, and a threat that your product is the answer to. And to me, that is what I would call the barbecue sauce movie. You're staking a claim with precision, because precision is what it takes to earn a place in a farmer's program year after year. And if you think about it, what does specificity do psychologically? When you dial the message into one clear problem, you give the farmer and the advisor the understanding and capability to look for a reason to use the product. You've really highlighted it. You've brought it to the forefront instead of handing them a vague claim along with everybody else. Just throw this in with your herbicide pass or your fungicide pass, whatever it might be. Now you have them looking, you have them thinking about it, you have them wanting to understand where that problem is going to show up. And I understand the pushback around this. I've heard this many times. I've worked with a bunch of different companies on applying this framework, and they say, but Shane, my product genuinely does work across multiple crops and multiple stresses. If I narrow the message, am I leaving money on the table? I understand the fear 100%, but focus is not the same as limitation. Barbecue sauce can absolutely be used on other things. For example, it's often an option when you order chicken strips at a restaurant or that are deep fried, or at your favorite sub sandwich restaurant, it's always an option on your chicken sandwich or whatever it might be. And so the brand just chooses to plant its flag on the use case where it wins most clearly and most credibly to begin with. And so you lead with that beachhead, the one crop, the one clearly defined problem where your data is strongest and the result is the most repeatable. And so you win that position, you build trust, you become the default answer to that problem. And from that position of credibility, expansion gets easier, especially considering many farmers grow more than one crop. So if you own that specific problem in canola or whatever crop it might be, that farmer probably also has wheat and peas in rotation. And those are, of course, going to be options over time, but you own that one specific crop and one specific problem case in that crop. Trying to claim all of it on day one is exactly what keeps companies from owning any of it. And I've run this playbook with multiple biostimulant companies over the years, as I alluded to, and the approach has always been the same. You still start with the science and the data. You don't just throw a dart at a dartboard and say, that's the problem we're going after. You actually start with some of the data from the greenhouse, from the lab, or from some of your early trial initiatives. And then you identify the crop in the situation where the results are most promising and most repeatable. Then you build the messaging and the education around that one problem, made tangible by where it actually shows up, such as high temperatures at a specific growth stage, for example. Again, I keep coming back to that one because I've done it multiple times, but you can do this with cold. You can do this with a specific nutrient and nutrient use efficiency. There's a bunch of different options that you can look at it for. And you can tell the farmer and agronomist exactly what to look for, how to test for it, how to observe it, and how to make sure that they are understanding when and where it shows up and how badly it can impact them. Being precise gets farmers and agronomists thinking about that problem proactively. It focuses your own company too, which I think is underrated around this as well. Your communication, your awareness building, your priorities all line up behind one clear initiative instead of scattering across a dozen vague claims. The amount of times when I was in ag retail as an agronomist, I would hear one thing from, I would hear two different things from 3 different sales reps. And so all of a sudden you don't understand what the right answer is. If you have that one specific message about where, why, how to use a specific product, it's going to gain momentum that much faster. And I think the further a company goes down that funnel of specificity, the more successful the product is and the better its prospects for growth. I think everyone sees this in the realm of traditional crop protection, as I alluded to earlier. There are specific crops, diseases, or weeds that a product gets positioned on and emphasized in, which means that product gets marketed and prioritized where that issue is the most common. The biostimulant industry has spent years being everything to everyone, and it has paid for it with credibility. I think you can go look at a bunch of different companies, product types where they have been sewered because of poor messaging. And I think for the companies that stop selling Frank's RedHot sauce, they start selling barbecue sauce. I think picking the problem you solve best, making it tangible, making it known, delivering urgency, and owning that position in the farmer's mind, that focus goes a long way because it's the only thing that resonates deeply enough to move a product from nice to have toward default. And this is the sauce paradox. If this was useful, this is the kind of breakdown I do every week in Upstream Ag Insights. I'll link it below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.